Well, happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am excited about my next guest. We actually got connected through Megan Finio. If you guys don't know her, she is all about empowering women to let us know that we are enough. Well, she was just so gracious to connect me with Jenny, and we have had a good time ever since we have gotten to meet one another. But we're going to get into all these dynamic things that she's doing here pretty soon coming up. So stay tuned for that. But before we get into some great conversation, I want to yield the floor to you, Jenny, to tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Oh, wonderful. Well, first of all, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on the show with you today, Lachelle. It has been absolutely fantastic getting to know you over the last number of weeks and just excited to have you on an interview series that was really on my heart to create. And it's called She's Empowered. And the capital HER in the middle, guys. Like, I got this, you can call it a download or whatever, but just had this on my heart. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is what gets to be created. So I was just super pumped. But I do want to tell you a little bit about myself. I live here in South Dakota in the USA. And so as a Midwest gal, I've been born and raised here and just absolutely loving life. And in the last few years, we actually moved into our dream house,
Mm-hmm.
which is really kind of cool. I got a little story about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny. Like, I went back through my journals and I think I found one in 2014, and it actually described where I'm living today, which is
Awesome.
actually really cool. So I'm like, I gotta
Wow.
make sure I share that with you today, Lachelle, because I'm like, that, it just came up. It happened that I was paging through and I'm like, whoa, this is where I'm living today. It's a little bit different, but
Hmm.
overall, I'm living in my dream house
That's
on my dream
amazing.
acreage. I wouldn't say with my dream chickens yet, but I've the one chicken I have that I picked. I thought it was a girl, so I named her Priscilla. Then she started crowing, and I had to rename her Dave. So we're on an acreage. We have animals, both wild that roam around the backyard that we see in passing, and then also our animals that live on the acreage with us.
That
So
is
that's a
amazing.
little bit about me.
Yes, I met someone through LinkedIn
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago, and she has 80 chickens. So, it is just something about the animals, really getting back to nature. I think
Hmm.
we have acreage as well, but, it has been somewhat of a learning experience to appreciate, all the different wild animals that you were mentioning that come by every now and again, but it's so peaceful, being in the city versus being out, no street lights. And although people do drive fast through the neighborhood sometime, but it
Hmm.
is really a great experience to have that peace and really get grounded in nature. So I sure appreciate that.
Oh, 100%. And you're right. The peace and just being able to go outside, your front door or back door and be in nature, like just instant. It's like, holy smokes, this is really cool. Because
Hmm.
I grew up in the city. I was a city girl, right? My
Hmm.
whole life.
Hmm.
Now I'm finding out what it means to be a country girl.
Uh-huh. So that is amazing. They're already over there. I set everything over there. Close the door, please. I'm sorry. I tried to prepare before we got into the interview. Before we hit record, I was like, I'm closing the door. I'm getting them everything. And then they come in here asking me everything. So it's crazy. But
Mhm,
so I love the interview series that you got the
mhm.
download for. So talk to us a little bit more about that. I mean, when you told me the title, I was all in. So share with everybody, what you want them to get from this and, why we all need to be there.
Yes. So I want to invite everyone to join me and my amazing experts, which Lachelle is also one of our experts on the show. It's the She's Empowered interview series. And the reason I created it, it's really we're talking about multiple things, guys, that are all meant to help you really build that empowered life. So we're talking about empowerment, confidence, mindset, boundaries, and worthiness. And it really was a download for me. And it was on my heart to do because, the Lord's been tapping at me going, Jenny, it's time to raise your hand and create this. And I didn't know what I was creating until I kind of started taking action towards it. So really, I've got about 27 experts that are going to be sharing about all of these important topics and really sharing their frameworks, their strategies, their tools. Because, even if you haven't had those up until now, you get to have them through this series. And the series is 100% free to attend. It's virtual, so you're going to be able to watch it, from any device that really can connect to the internet. So if you've got a Kindle or a phone, cell phone, or a laptop, desktop, whatever you use to connect to the internet, you're going to have that available to you, which is really amazing. I love technology, especially when it works.
Right.
And I love that I was kind of tasked with doing this series, because I do think it's going to help a lot of women really step into their power, really step into their worthiness, and create that confidence, so you can really show up and start creating the life that you really love. So that's just a little snippet of what we've got coming up for you soon.
I love that. And, many people can resonate with what you're saying, or many women, especially. It has been a very trying last couple years with this pandemic. And then, really feeling like you are spreading yourself thin in a lot of places. You're supporting people at work with through changes, you're supporting your kids and your spouse and other family members, that everything just seems to be where you only have so much energy, and it's a time to kind of get back to the reset for self.
Mhm.
So for somebody who's watching and is thinking about even using their gifts, because I think sometimes we're like, I'm spreading myself so thin now, how can I
Mhm.
even do another thing? And so I can only imagine with you really being able to take this on, what
Mhm.
did that look like for somebody, who is dealing with all these different things, but, really being a vehicle for other people to be blessed?
Oh, yeah. Well, I will tell you, it is a passion. I mean, it is a passion project for me. So it really doesn't feel like work. It's something that I look forward to. And just in the creation process, yeah, there's going to be little things that come up from time to time, as you're creating, as they do. And, you work through them, you make them small. So for me, this interview series, it's like, okay, when I start feeling overwhelmed in the creation process, it's like, okay, so I've got this big thing. Now, how do I make it small? How do I make it small and easy to do so that I can really take it one thing at a time? And when I drop back into that, making it easy, it's like,
Mhm.
okay. And I've got my kids and my husband, they're so supportive. And I've got family and friends that are just really like, wow, this is really cool that you're taking this on, that you're adding to your plate, right? This big
Mhm.
project.
Mhm.
And their support is definitely, appreciated, because they're just like, okay, mom's got an interview to do. Great. We'll make sure it's as quiet as we can make it. We do have animals. So sometimes you may or may not hear a dog bark, or, chickens crowing. You never know what's going to show up on the screen.
Mhm.
But, overall, it's been just really amazing. And it fills me up. Like I am just overjoyed to be on camera with you, Lachelle. Our interview was amazing. And just all the amazing and powerful women that I have met on this journey. So
Mhm.
really it's like God's laying out this path for me, and I'm walking down it. I'm just like, okay, I will be faithful. I'm going to keep going forward. And it's just everything that I've needed is kind of coming into my path.
I
So
love
whether I need encouragement or, any of those things. It's like it's there.
Mhm, mhm. I love that, and I think, that is just so beautiful how, you're able to step into that because I think
Mhm,
many of us are like, "Oh, I don't know," we
mhm,
second guess ourselves. We have, self-sabotage, all these real things that we kinda mentioned, but they happen in
mhm,
real time, and I love how you mentioned that your family's supportive and things like that. So, for somebody who is in the space of feeling like, it's their turn to kind of step out,
mhm.
what advice would you give them about, explaining it to the family or, just the first few action steps?
Sure, that is a great question. And really, when I kind of had this on my heart to do,
Mhm.
for me, it was important to stay out of when I went to ask for the support and tell everybody, like, okay, this is what I'm creating. Um, I really had to get out of my head because that's where I find I do the most damage, right? Is when I
Mhm.
say, oh, God, am I really the person that's supposed to do this? Is
Mhm.
this really for me, or is somebody else supposed to be doing this, right? And I get in that cycle where it's like, oh, maybe it's not me, maybe it's someone else, and then I'm like, you know what, the Lord put it on my heart to do.
Mhm.
And so I drop into my heart and I'm just like, okay, there are people that are meant to hear this message. There
Mhm.
are women out there that have been asking for a series such as this.
Mhm.
And who am I not to do it? Who am I to say no to that? I can say no to myself all I want, but I can't say no to helping others and giving them, everything that this series is going to have in it. It's power packed, full of amazing tips, full of
Mhm.
amazing strategies. And I am just so glad I said yes and took the action. Like, that's the other thing too, is being willing to take action
Mhm.
towards that bigger vision. And when that vision is bigger than just something that's going to benefit you, when it's bigger and it helps others, and
Mhm.
there's others that can come and align with your vision,
Mhm.
then it's like, okay, you build momentum, but it's by taking those first few action steps.
Yeah. And I so resonate with that because,
Mhm.
we just really, a lot of times we are building the plane while we're flying, but
Right.
we're flying. That's the key word. We're in action, in movement.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I just love this. When you think about empowered,
Mhm.
what is it that you really want us to walk away with? This is a term that a lot of people share, but as women, sometimes we are running around doing all these things and feeling like busyness is being valuable. But,
Mhm.
coming from a place of empowerment is so much different. So, what would you like us to really take away when we think about the word empowered?
Right. So and I'll start back with kind of why it's called She's Empowered. And it's
Mhm,
really because I want people to walk away. I want women to walk away saying, wow, I'm worthy. I
mm,
can start building my confidence today. Even if it's something that, you thought you were either born with it or you weren't. You get to start today. Because, like, yeah, you can say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the
mhm,
second best time is today, is to get in action today.
mhm,
Because really being empowered for me, and for, I hope, all the audience members, everyone who attends, that they're going to be able to walk away and say, wow, I can be expansive.
mhm,
I can start building a life I truly want to be living in every day, that I want to be waking up to. And
mhm,
really kind of assessing what are those tasks, those things that are keeping me busy, and either how can you reframe them so they're more life giving,
mhm,
or how can you delegate those away and free up that time for something that truly fills you up and lights you up. Because
mm,
when you're lit up, you don't realize this, but like when you are absolutely lit up and you're passionate about something, it's just like the whole room lights up as a result. You cause others to light up, like you are the cause, which is
mhm,
so amazing. So
mhm,
that's what I really want each of the attendees who who are part of the interview series and say yes to attending, that's what I want them to walk away with, is just knowing that they'll come away from it with tools, with strategies that they can start using right away to start shifting their life.
Yeah, I love that. There was someone, I thought I had written it down. We were in a room yesterday in
Mhm.
Clubhouse, and they said something about once you really settle with yourself, you begin to attract the energy that you need to keep moving forward. And I'm paraphrasing
Mhm.
quite a bit, but that is really the gist of what they said. And, I so agree with that because many times we are not at our best.
Mhm.
We're low energy, we've depleted, we're giving things to everybody else, and we have nothing for ourselves. And we
Mhm.
think that we're pouring from a full cup, but it's really empty. I mean, that was the story in my journey. So I love the ability to come together as a collective and create a place where it could be safe enough for people to be honest about some of the challenges that they have so that they can move past them. So for other people who may be kind of intimidated when it comes to working with women, we hear a lot of stuff about, oh my goodness, they're cliquish or whatever. What would you say to that?
I would say that there is a shift that's coming. There
Mhm,
are movements that are coming that you're going to start seeing more and more.
mhm,
And it's really about being collaborative. It's about creating synergy.
mhm,
And it's really about championing each other. Because when we celebrate each other, when we truly lift each other up, we get to be the tide that raises all the boats.
mm,
And we get to be the new example of what's possible for women in relationships with other women, right? For,
mhm,
when we're championing each other, when we're celebrating our wins, and we're
mm,
not going, oh, she's bragging. It's like, no, like, let's celebrate with her because something amazing just happened. And when we celebrate that, like, it gets to spread and we all get to start celebrating each other. And the energy that comes from that, it's like, wow, if she can do it, what's possible for me?
mhm, mhm,
So, really, it's about that collaboration, getting connected, networking, building that tribe, that community that supports you, that nourishes you, that
mhm.
celebrates you. Like, we all have our stories, and I encourage everyone to tell their story. And I invite you to not only tell your story, but then what are you creating from that story? What amazing things are
Mm,
you bringing into this world that wouldn't have been there had you not said yes?
love that. I mean, that is so good. And, and I'm thinking back to the interview, and you did such a wonderful job with getting the questions, the content out regarding the topic at hand. So, for people who were like, they wanna do it, but they're like, "I don't know what questions to ask," "How do I do that?" Because, it can be intimidating, to have an interview. So what advice would you give about that? Knowing what questions to ask and, how to set the environment, that type of thing.
Sure. So really, it comes down to, like, I've done it both ways. I've done it as I've done a series where I had a set of questions, and it
Mhm,
was my first series, and I was definitely nervous. So I had everything as structured as it could be.
mhm,
And what I realized as I was creating this series, I'm like, wow, what if I could just have an amazing conversation
mhm,
with, these amazing women, these experts in their fields, and talk to them about their area of expertise and just let the conversation flow. Now,
mm.
for some people, that's going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to have a list of questions, right? And
Right.
that's perfectly fine. Like, I would say, if that's where you're at, or if that's how
Mhm,
you process, no worries. You can do it both ways, and the interviews come out amazing. So you can
mhm,
have your list of questions. What are the things that you most want to know? What are the things that you've heard from your friends, your community, that
mhm,
they're really struggling with, that they want to know more about, so that they can shift? And really, that's kind of where I get my questions from. That's kind of where I'm at when I'm speaking with someone, is I'm looking at, okay, what do I want to take away from this interview? What value can I provide?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to be a conversation
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing, where you get to traverse kind of like the whole field of what they really are experts in.
Love that. And, you know, I mean, so many things come to mind because, you know, you don't really think about it until you are kind of immersed into it. But
Mm-hmm.
even the whole process of, you know, you and I were strangers, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I was referred to you by Megan, but this whole process of calling people you've never talked to before, you know, what to say, how to do that. You know what I mean? That's something that we just don't think about. But, you know, for somebody watching, they're like, how can I even get started? Because they get in their own way. So, how did you overcome even just simply asking people? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so that experience, I will tell you, the first series that I ever did, it was nerve-wracking. I will be 100% transparent there. It was nerve-wracking that first time because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, if somebody says that they're interested in being interviewed, what next?" And it's like,
Mhm.
"Okay, so the next step is get them on a phone call so you can explain what it is." Because for me, when I'm on a phone call, it's much easier for me to convey what the series is, what it's going to look like, what the intent is,
Mhm.
what I'm creating, like the vision for what I'm creating. I love getting on phone calls, even if they're just 10 to 15 minutes, just to share that. And
Mhm.
Lachelle, I remember our phone call was absolutely fantastic. The first time I spoke with you, it was just like, look at it as like, yes, they're like, we're talking to experts on the phone, the ones that'll get on the phone with us. We're talking to them or being referred to others. And when you think about it as like, wow, not only are we going to have a great conversation, but at the end of it, if this aligns with your vision,
Mhm.
or if you align with mine, we get to create something amazing together that wouldn't have been created had we not started with that initial phone call.
Yeah.
And I think about it in terms of like, who am I serving?
Mhm.
And when I connect with that, it makes the phone call so much easier. If I stay in my head and I spin and spin and spin and go, oh my gosh, who am I to even be calling these people? When I let that self talk, that negative self talk, spin around in my head, it's easy for me to say, nope, not making the calls today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
But, when I go,
For
okay,
sure.
my vision is so big and
Mhm.
my why is so deep, it's like, yeah, this gets to happen. And
Mhm.
I'm trusting that everyone that is meant to be in this series is going to say yes. And the ones that it doesn't align with, they'll say no, or they'll say now is not the right time. And they
Mhm.
might be a guest on one of the future events.
Love that. You know, and I mean, I love so many things that you said there. That's so true about the talk that we have in our head versus really believing where we're headed, you know, or are we just going to talk ourselves out of it? Now, I
Mhm.
want to go back to what you mentioned earlier about the journal in your house. And, you know, for many people, when they're in business or they have a calling, they feel to do something, you know, it's like they plant the seed, the next day they want to eat the fruit, right? We just don't have patience.
Right.
So you mentioned that was 2014, and now we're having an interview in 2022. So
Mhm.
talk to us about the importance of patience, what it's taught you, and, you know, how we approach some things that maybe they are a vision, something that we feel led to do, but that journey of it taken a minute to manifest.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that question because, obviously I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to live in the country on an
Mhm,
acreage. That it was something that my husband early in our marriage, we had talked about. We're like, wow, we had been out on my grandparents' farm for about 6 months and then moved into town, kind of during a transitional period.
mhm,
And we both really enjoyed being in the country. So we're like, well, what would it look like if we could live in the country? And we
mhm,
kind of started to dream a little bit. And then it ended up in my journal, right? So
mhm,
after we had been married for about 10 years.
mhm,
And then I'm like, okay, well, what does it look like if we're out in the country? And I got clear on what that might be.
Mhm.
And now we're almost there, right? And it manifested, but it took a number of years. It took
Mhm.
about um, let's see, if it was 2014, it took about six or 7 years for that to really
Mhm.
kind of come full circle.
Mhm.
But things can happen a lot sooner than that, right? So I had this seed planted in me for this series back in July of last year. And I
Mhm.
didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what I was creating at that point in time. But the more action I was taking, the clearer I got. And then
Mhm.
in about January, February timeframe, that's when I knew that this was the event I was meant to create. And I started taking action because I'm like, okay, I can see what I want that end vision to be for this event. And it was like, okay, what happens first? What happens second? And it was really mapping it out and
Mhm.
then creating it. But you've got to have the vision for it first, and you have to get clear on it so you know where you're focusing your energy and your time.
Mm. I love that. And I mean, to me, I'm hearing that, the sooner you might take action, the sooner it may
Mhm.
manifest. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And,
Yep.
when you have these things now, and it's so um telling about you having this idea of living in the country. That's like
Mhm.
a family type of goal.
Yeah.
So, going through that process, is it a transition for everybody to kind of get on board with that same vision? Or are you just leading everybody? So explain to us how that kind of works.
Sure. So because we knew where we wanted to be, we didn't know
Mhm.
like what specific piece of land we were going to be on, or if it was going to be
Mhm.
an existing home, or if we would be building a home.
Mhm.
But we knew that the end goal was to be in the country.
Mm.
So it really started with, okay, we went through some real estate agents, looked at a lot of different places. We got into action, right? We
Mhm.
started looking at different places. Then we're like, okay, nothing was really aligning with what we wanted. So we're like, okay, well, what does it look like if we start looking for pieces of land where we can build?
Mhm.
And then we started visiting a couple places where we're like, okay, we'd get out of the car, we'd walk the gravel, right? Because most of these pieces of land are farmland and they're on gravel roads. And we'd
Mhm.
walk the gravel and then we'd hop back in the truck and it was like, okay, was this it? What do we think about this place? And the first couple of times it was like there was just nothing there. We're like, okay,
Mhm.
this isn't the place for us.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because even one place where we're like, well, maybe we got in conversation with the owner and it ended up being a no. And I'm like, oh, well,
Mm.
that's interesting. So then we found the place that we built today, or that we built on today, and we came down the road. We got out of the truck and it was a nice warm day. The sun was shining, the birds were literally singing. We could
Mhm.
hear the insects. It was just peaceful. And I looked over the land that we were going to build on, and I saw some butterflies flying out of there. I'm like,
Mhm.
and I knew in that moment, I'm like, this is where we're meant to build for our family, for generations to come. This is where it is. And it was just
That's
that moment of clarity. And then we knew after that, it was like, okay, now what do we do? First, second, third, fourth, fifth.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that because, I mean, a lot of people talk about, journaling, having a vision, having a goal, but
Mhm.
I love that you were able to walk us through that because,
Mhm.
I can resonate with that because there's so many things. Just having a big family, it's like,
Mhm.
I really feel like I see miracles from God every day. Okay. I'm just saying, because I'm like, I don't know how I do it, how I make it through a day. But, and when you try to explain that to people, sometimes it's like, you don't know what to say, what they may be curious about, but you have done a great job really explaining that and understanding that it is a process, but that knowing,
Mhm.
you have that clarity. And I think when you have that clarity, it gives you more stamina to be even more patient, if that makes
Mhm.
sense, because you're
Yeah,
kind of clear about where you're going.
100%.
So this has just been wonderful. I mean, I could go on for hours, and
I know.
we
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 could.
we are so excited to have you guys here with us today. And we really want to invite all of you to join us in this interview series. And if you see on the bottom of the screen, we do have the link for you to click on, reserve your spot. It is complimentary and a great opportunity to hear from 27 speakers. And this is just amazing. So, as we wrap up, Jenny, what is the best way for everybody to get a hold of you, and any final thoughts that you want to share with everyone today?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lachelle. This has absolutely been a joy to be with you again. And how people can get a hold of me. Well, guys, what I would love for you to do is get registered for the She's Empowered interview series. And
Mhm.
that's the best way to get a hold of me at the current moment, because that is really where my heart's at. And I get to create from that place right now. So please join us. Lachelle's going to be on there with me during one of the interviews, and actually in the first week. So spoiler alert, she's in the first week, guys. so, so
I'm
make sure you get
excited.
registered, because we do kick off on the series begins on April 11th,
Mhm,
2022.
mhm.
And it's going to run until the 22nd. And you're going to get access to, like we were talking about, the 27 speaker interviews throughout those 2 weeks. So it's going to
Mhm.
be power packed, easy to listen to, tons of value, and it's free. So
Love
I would
it.
just encourage you, I love saying this, like, she's empowered, where you're going to powerfully step into your worthiness and create the confidence you crave. So I hope you'll join us.
Yes. And so this is just, I'm really excited because there are some people that I know on the panel, but there's other ones that I haven't had the opportunity to meet. So I am looking forward to hearing all the insights. And one of the things that I have learned just recently, I have a club on Clubhouse, and we did a challenge as a community. And it is really being in a space to hear from others that you really grow and learn, hey, someone can always teach me something to help me live a little better, how help me to speak a little more impactful and things of that nature. So I am really excited to hear all the ladies on the panel. So so happy that we connected, and so glad that you took the time to share with everybody. I mean, your insights have been amazing, and I hope everybody was taking notes. But if you didn't, you can go back and watch this again and share it with a friend. So, Jenny, any other final thoughts that you would like to share with us?
Oh, final thoughts, guys. I have so many, but the one I will leave you with today is, I would invite you to go out there, create something that you didn't think was possible today. And I want you to have that in mind. And then I want you to go out and create it. So if that's a conversation, if that's just doing some self care, go and create that today. That's my invitation to everyone today.
Love that. And that is a really good challenge because we have to stop allowing negative talk, limiting beliefs, and all these other things to stop us from being great. That reminds me of my mantra. I was challenged by Les Brown in a room to come up with a mantra, and mine is a life without excuses is a mindset for greatness. So, everybody has greatness in them, and stop with the excuses and get in action. So, thank you again, Jenny, for all of your insights. And I really invite everybody to reach out to Jenny, follow her on social media, and be supportive with different things that she may have that is happening, because it's all about helping all of us to be better versions of ourselves. So, thank you guys so much again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.